Listen to the unofficial voice of World Cup 2006, brought to you by Times Online, in association with the Dodge Calibre.
Hello, and welcome to Baddiel and Skinner's World Cup podcast.
On this show, we'll be finding out about Peter Crouch's appearance on University Challenge.
Yeah, we'll be hearing all your ideas for new nicknames for the England squad.
And we've got a new competition, a fantastic competition, starting today, in which you can win a massive, sort of big car.
A big car, brilliant. And also, of course, we'll be hearing from our special World Cup guest, Morrissey. Frank, did you watch the England-Jamaica game?
I did by chance. I assumed it was going to be a 3 o'clock kickoff, and I thought, well, I'll watch some of the preamble on the telly. And I put it on at about 3 minutes to 2, and they were just... Actually, there was the longest national anthem I've ever heard from the Jamaicans.
Well, it might have been because they were late. Did you hear this?
They were late?
Yes, interesting. You were late. They were late arriving. Did you not hear this?
They obviously thought it was a 3 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah.
Ian Wright was late as well.
Ian Wright was late, yes. Although Ian Wright then said he was late because he was trying to do homage to the way the Jamaicans are, because they were just chilling out and they arrived late. But I didn't know why they were late. And then I read that apparently the goalkeeper's shirt was at the laundrette and someone had to go and get it. Right. To go and get it from the service wash or something and bring it back for the goalie.
At the laundrette?
Yeah, apparently it was at the laundrette. I don't know if it was a Jamaican laundrette, if you had to go all the way to Jamaica for it.
Oh,
but it was an odd thing.
I didn't know that.
Because I was publicising these very podcasts on the Eamon Holmes show on Radio 5, and I was talking to him, this was before the game, and he's on asked me about Peter Crouch's robotics, and just in passing, and I got into a terrible tiz, because I said it'll be interesting if he does the dance, it'll be interesting to see how the Jamaicans, what the Jamaicans think of it. And as I said it, I thought, is that racist? Is that implying that Jamaicans have got a sort of special stranglehold on dance that's somehow stereotypical?
Yeah.
And as I said it, I thought I started to fluster because I thought, what do I say next after I've said what will the Jamaicans think of it? But then fabulously, the Jamaicans were late, thus completely confirming their kind of chilled out Caribbean stereotype.
I don't think they would have recognised it as a dance anyway, would they?
No, I'm not sure they would.
They'd have probably thought, is he all right, that man?
Yeah, they might have thought he had St. Vitus's dance,
Yeah, exactly.
which I believe they may still have in Jamaica. So what did you think of it as a game?
I thought it was... I liked the way it started off, and John Watson said to Lawrence, and he said, this is a bit tougher than we thought. This is going to be like a proper game. And then 20 minutes later, he was saying, well, of course, this is just a practice match.
There was a moment between Motson and Lawrenson, which I wanted to see if you noticed, which is, I can't remember what the player was now, some Jamaican player called Caesar, something or other, but he played for Kansas City Wizards.
Right.
And at that point, that was mentioned by John Motson, and Martin Lawrenson, after about 3 minutes of thinking about it, said, I thought you were going to say he had a spell with Kansas City Wizards. Yeah. And then after about another 4 minutes of thinking about it, John Watson said, you're really bewitching me today.
Very good.
Right. And I thought that is the worst bit of commentator-co-commentator repartee I've ever heard.
Well, did you hear the bit, I can't remember which, I think it was in the Hungary friendly, when he said to Lawrence, and he said, in a minute, Mark, I'm going to ask you which of the World Cup songs you like.
Yes.
And he said, all right. So gave him a chance to prepare, and he said, well, which one? And he said, none of them.
Yeah, I actually nearly texted you at that point, because we weren't watching it together, and said, thanks very much for that, Lawrence.
Well, I think Lawrenson doesn't like anything that isn't done by professional footballers who played at the very highest level. I think he resents the very existence of fans.
Yeah, I'm not sure he likes very much in general. He seems a dour fellow.
He does.
In many respects. But it was an interesting game in some respects, and it sees the arrival, doesn't it, of Peter Crouch as a kind of national hero.
I think probably when he did the dance against Hungary, that was... I think we're going to look back as Peter Crouch's robotic dance is kind of like Gazza's tears. That was the moment he became a legendary figure.
Yeah, an iconic moment. But the great thing about Peter Crouch is that, he is turning out to play well in lots of ways, and yet he's still retaining an absolute absurdity. Don't you think? He scores, which is great, and then he does a really stupid dance, so that he's actually playing well and still being a funny, ridiculous figure, which is a perfect combination. I mean, when he did the dance, what I thought is this is a bloke who looks like he's on stilts anyway. Now he's doing a robotic dance. It's like being at Covent Garden in the 80s, watching a street entertainer.
Well, he brings up his elbows quite high when he does the dance, and I thought there could actually be danger for the other players in the celebrations, because you wouldn't want Peter Crouch's elbow going into your chest.
Well, they're very sharp, aren't they?
I imagine it would come out your back.
You know, they're awful. But I do think he's becoming a major figure. One of the things that I've often thought about Peter Crouch is that he represents an interesting philosophical problem about the aspect of being tall, which is that generally, as quite a short bloke, I'm about 5'8", I think it's quite good being tall. And 6'2", 6'3", it's all like, oh, I wish I was that high. And then suddenly there comes a point where you're no longer good tall, you're stupid tall. And that seems to be summed up by Peter Crouch.
Yeah, it's hard to say where. I mean, if Peter Crouch was kind of built like Dennis Rodman, though, I think that would be all right. It's just because, like, his legs, I'm still... the novelty hasn't worn off. It looks, you know those things on You've Been Framed, when a bloke has got one foot on the dock and one in a small rowing boat, and it starts to separate? Yeah. It looks like Peter Crouch has stuck with it.
Yes.
Even when the boat's been out, the boat's actually gone out to sea.
Yes.
And Peter Crouch has still got his feet planted.
He looks like he's been on a rack. That's how he was made, by some kind of Spanish Inquisitional rack. Yeah. And that's how he was left.
One good thing about it, though, is, you know, when they interview, like when players suddenly become stars, like Theo Walcott, and they say, isn't it a bit odd for you, you know, being pointed at in the street and stuff like that? And Crouch is going to say, no, that's been true since I was about 7.
Yeah, he's always been pointed out in the street. But, you know, I did like him dancing. I thought there was something incredibly charming about it. I thought he had a good groove for a big man.
Yes, he has got a good groove. You can see that quite clearly. I don't know. I thought that when he took the penalty, it kind of reminded me that deep down, I still think he's rubbish.
What I thought, I don't know if you thought this, when he was about to take the penalty, I instantly thought he's going to miss, and not actually because he's rubbish, but because he's absurd. I thought he will now miss in a silly way, and he actually did miss in a silly way. And must be the only player to score a hat-trick in an England game and still be told off by the manager. You know, he was actually told off by Sven for trying such a silly penalty.
Was he really?
Yeah, he was. He said, why did you do that? And Sven, I imagine, never tells anyone off.
It'll be great, though, if England win the World Cup, if they get someone up on his shoulders, the way they did with Bobby Moore. I mean, it's going to be fantastic, because he's going to be high above the stadium. Just a little bit of snow on the top of the World Cup.
That raises a point that you've made, actually, to me in the past, which is this idea that you should be able to put a player on another player's shoulders during the game, if you want. And with Peter Crouch, that would make the tallest thing in the world.
This is a kind of a rugby point. I hate rugby, as you know, but they do, when they have a line out, they literally lift the bloke up. And I don't see why, if they lift him, he doesn't look very heavy, Peter Crouch, and he's quite aerodynamic. If they thrust him upwards, they'd have like about 8 or 9 feet, they could put the ball across.
That point about him not being very heavy is a very interesting one, because, what is he, 6'7"?
6'7", yeah.
Yeah, and I would have thought he must be one of the lightest 6'7" people in the world. He must hold some kind of record weight for that height.
But where's it all
going to end?
Well, where is it going to end? Because I still have got serious doubts as to whether he's any good or not. If you looked at the hat-trick, it was an own goal. It was a ball from about 2 feet off the line. Then he missed a penalty. And then the final goal, which looked really good, was one of those when I thought really could have gone anywhere. Yeah. So I kind of like Peter Crouch, because I like to see people who were picked on at school doing well.
Yes.
But I'm not totally convinced that he's an international footballer.
You could be right. I mean, it's interesting about him being picked on, in that when I heard that Sven had told him off, I thought that is like a bloke who gets bullied at school, bullying the bloke who gets bullied a bit more. That's what I thought.
Which does happen, of course.
It does happen, yeah. Well, it will be an amazing thing, though, won't it? If he does play well at the World Cup. And what struck me this morning is, what happens if we get to the quarter-final, Rooney's fit, and they think, well, Peter Crouch is playing well. He's playing well with Michael Owen. We've got to keep Peter Crouch in rather than Wayne Rooney.
I think that won't happen.
Definitely. Not even if Crouch and Owen have got a chemistry and scoring and all the rest of it.
Well, I don't know. I think they mentioned this as a possibility on the interactive post-punditry. Someone said what people always say, it's a nice problem to have. Do you think he could hide behind the post for set
Peter
pieces?
Crouch? Yes, I think
there's an actual possibility that it might not see him on the far post, then he could suddenly dart out and head the ball in.
Is he taller than the post? Because you would see his head and his nose.
I think he must be edging the floodlights.
People would think, what is that thing on top of the post? If you was hiding behind the
It's
post,
his head.
it was his head. They've got some kind of gargoyle on top of the goalpost.
It's obviously some of those good luck gongs like they used to have at University Challenge.
Can I read you something I read in the paper just recently? In fact, this morning it's in the Sunday
Sunday
Times.
so much
this morning.
easier than me reading the paper myself.
Okay, I'll read it to you because there's a lot of talk at the moment that Sven doesn't really know what he's doing. Yeah, you know, the England team are very good. They've got a good squad, but he doesn't know what he's doing. And they have two quotes here, and they perhaps do demonstrate that. It's Joe Lovejoy in the Sunday Times. Joe Cole, this is Sven talking, Joe Cole can play as a second striker, why not? The possibility of using him there is one of the reasons Stuart Downing is in the squad to come in on the left, and that's Sven-Goran Eriksson on May the 8th. Then, on May the 30th, Sven said, I think Steven Gerrard is fantastic in the role he had against Hungary. Why should I try Cole? I haven't even thought about that. That's 3 weeks after he was saying that Joe Cole could play there. He apparently hadn't thought about it.
You're right.
Now, either he's got Alzheimer's, or he's just in a bit of a mess about his thinking.
I think he might be playing a bit of it. There was a lovely bit yesterday on the coverage that Lineker was talking to Hansen, and then they suddenly realised that they got Sven waiting for his post-match interview, and he said, "We're going to go to the England manager. He's much more important than you." And you just heard Sven say, "Thank you for that." It was really sweet, like he was genuinely flattered.
I think he is a very, very sweet man.
I don't believe this kind of... I think Lawrenson used to compare it with a being there, that Peter Sellers thing, where he just happened to be in the right place at the right time. You can't get... You know, he's done well for England.
Mark Lawrenson compared it to being there.
He did, yeah.
That's quite an abstruse cultural reference from Mark Lawrenson.
I think the DVD must have been free in the mirror. Owen Hargreaves, you sod, are you just in the squad? 'Cause you know your way round Germany. You can't pass, but you know some good bars and a shop in Berlin that sells Burberry. You're slower than most, but you know the German word for roast. Your tackles aren't very hard, but you've got a Raper-Barn loyalty card. A World Cup medal you might win, even though you're only in, 'cause you know your way round Germany.
Now, something that we actually put on our website was a request, didn't we, for people to come up with a whole series of England nicknames.
What's our website address? I feel we should publicise that now.
What is our website address? I don't actually know. Roachy, who's our producer, Peter Roach, who's called Roachy because that's what radio producers are called.
Not that this is radio.
Not that this is a radio, but he has been a radio producer, and also talking about nicknames. So Roachy is the most obvious one.
Roachy, and then you get Foxy and Coxy and Milesy and...
Yeah. Perhaps you can tell us what our website
is. It's www.timesonline.co.uk, Times Online all being one word. And then if you click through from the front page, that will take you through to our site, which is baddielandskinner.com.
Oh. Fairly straightforward, isn't it?
It was fairly straightforward,
yeah.
And there's all sorts of stuff on there.
Yeah, there is all sorts. But occasionally we're going to ask you, our listeners, to come up with things to join in with on the podcast.
Well, we want it to be interactive. This is the 21st century, after all.
And one thing you mentioned, Frank, is that we feel that David James's nickname, Calamity James, is not helpful for his self-esteem, is it?
No, and it's been around for a while now. I mean, I think there's been a slight drop in kind of football and nicknames. They don't seem to be as common as they used to be in the old days.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I like the idea of them, but I think Calamity James is a bit starting on the wrong foot.
I mean, when we say it's his nickname, I don't think it's one that he uses that often.
Do you think that the other players say, "Oh, wait, Calamity"?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is this your Armani shirt?
I doubt it, because there's 4 syllables, which is quite a lot for a professional footballer.
Maybe they've even shortened that to like Callow.
Yeah, Cali.
Yeah.
Because, of course, it's an issue with footballer nicknames. I mean, for me, the most interesting footballer nickname was Paul Ince. Apparently tried to give himself a nickname that he suddenly announced.
The governor?
Yeah, the governor, when he was playing, I think, for Man United.
Yeah.
He suddenly said, right, I am the governor. I want you all to call me the governor, address me as the governor. I don't know if it was in writing or whatever.
Yeah.
And normally, at school or whatever, if someone says, right, I want you to call me, I don't know, Duke or someone, he just doesn't get called Duke at all. He gets called Toilet.
Yeah.
Because no one's going to call him a nice nickname. But did he get away with it, Paul Ince?
I don't know. They call him Incy as well, don't they?
Yeah, but they call him Incy. See, that reminds me of Incy Wincy Spider.
All right.
And he can't want to be reminded
No,
of that.
he don't want. I
Yeah.
think he kind of got known as the governor. I remember some bloke, some West Ham fan. It's a horrible story. I'm not condoning this kind of behaviour, but a West Ham fan went up to Paul Ince and hit him
Oh, yeah.
and said Judas.
Yes.
And when they asked the bloke about it, he said it was a case of mistaken identity. As if the bloke actually thought it was Judas.
Actually thought it was Judas.
And he was hitting him for betraying Jesus.
He was an apostle. He thought that. Yeah. I've had enough of the way you've treated Jesus. And he mistook him.
But anyway, David James. So what we want to do? Well, there's too many whoa-whoa-whoas in that.
Doesn't matter, we'll cut them out.
No, I liked it. I think we should keep it in.
All right.
I think it was a bit like, that Don't Worry, Be Happy song that's got which had an element to that.
Have you come up with any alternative nicknames for Henry James? Henry
James, the novelist.
Have you come up with any alternative nicknames
The
for
novelists
David
have
James?
a kind of a nickname thing going on.
Yeah, Jamesy, they used to call him.
Yeah, and Beza Bainbridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that he could be called, David James could be called Will Young.
Why is that?
Well, because you often wish that he hadn't come out. I'm sure he does.
Yeah, that's very good. Although I'm glad that Will Young has come out myself, because I think how long could you keep up that kind of charade, to be honest.
Oh, yes.
But that's a very good one. I actually...
Stephen Sherrod. It's a good nickname.
I've sort of blown it now with the Henry James, but I actually do think it would be interesting to have a literary thing, because I've noticed that a lot of the present England squad have got literary names. You could have David James, could be Henry, Jermaine Defoe, could be Daniel, Stephen Gerrard Manley Hopkins, obviously, and then Michael Carrick, I thought could be Alas Poor.
Alas Poor Carrick
Yeah.
is stretching it slightly, isn't it?
Best I could come up with.
Okay, well, it's good we got a literary. What did I come up with? I thought that Theo Walcott could be Golden Ticket.
Why?
Well, I got the idea that he got into the England squad because he found a golden ticket in a Kit Kat.
Yes.
The way you can get into the Big Brother house.
Yes.
I can't see how else he got in.
Yes. That'd be great if they had done that.
They
Do
could
you think
call
they
him-
actually had done that?
They could call him GT.
They have to shorten the nickname.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also, because he gambles, Michael Owen, I thought it could be like £1 million, Owen.
Oh, yes.
Um,
I think it was 800,000.
Was it?
Right. I'm sure that's not necessarily true, though, if our legal people are listening.
no, but he...
I had a good one for Aaron Lennon.
oh, yes, that's interesting.
Aaron Lennon, John. What do you think?
No, well, I'm interested in that because I thought of John for Aaron Lennon, but then I found out that John Lennon's first girlfriend, which I didn't know, was called Thelma Pickles, and Pickles, of course, stole the World Cup.
No, I think you can't say that. Pickles found the World
Oh,
Cup.
sorry, I don't want to lie on Pickles.
Pickles solicitors are
Sorry.
already phoning.
I beg your pardon. Of course, Pickles found the World Cup.
If
But-
Pickles, who is dead, and the dog is listening, we apologise very
yes,
much so.
but I thought that might be a good omen in some way.
And could you call Wayne Rooney Harold Shipman? Because he's often been caught sticking things into old age pensioners.
Yeah, Frank, I should say that we're not saying, are we, in any way, that Wayne Rooney is quite like Harold Shipman.
No,
we're
no.
not saying that.
Definitely not.
No,
We
he's-
think Wayne Rooney's fantastic.
Yeah. Shall we go to the website? Because we've actually had quite a few people send in nickname suggestions.
Yeah, we want people to carry on sending them in, but we've had a few good first ones. I
Yeah,
think.
we've had a fairly straight one. This is from someone who just calls themselves 23Niner, which is they've heard that David James can be called Dracula because he's so afraid of crosses, and then suggests Robo Crouch for Peter.
You see, I like one guy he sent in he's called Chelsea Clown, if I got the right one there. Chelsea Clown, and he sent in a couple of kind of doubles. So Beckham and Lampard should be called Pencil and Biro because no pens.
Yes.
You see?
Yes, they don't.
No
Yeah,
pen.
no pens.
But I do like this one from Chelsea Clown. He said that Peter Crouch could be named after the 60s pop stars Peter Tall and Scary.
That's brilliant.
I
That's
like
great.
that. Peter, Paul and Mary for our younger listeners.
Also, we had someone called Smudge, who, not being quite as inventive as Peter Tall and Scary, just says, well, we're talking about David James, we're talking footballers here, so surely it should be Jamesy.
But you know that's the only one that's got a real chance of becoming his nickname.
Yeah.
That probably is already his nickname. Vicky, nice to have a female breaking that stereotype of women and football. She says, hi, I don't know about a nickname for Crouch, but he does remind me of a ballet dancer, the way he prances around on the pitch.
What I particularly like about that is that she's done 7 exclamation marks after that.
No, I think they're actually artist impressions
Of him
him
dancing. Yeah. We have one here which is also about Peter Crouch, which is interesting. They suggest row R2D2 after the penalty and all that blooming robotic dancing. So what he's tried to do there is combine aspects of Peter Crouch, which is both the penalty and the dancing, row R2D2. So he knocks the ball into row R2D2, then he does a dance like R2D2. I think there's too much going on in that nickname.
But you couldn't have a row R2D2, could you? Because it's row R.
D2.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he hasn't really worked it through. But
If it was a very big stadium, I suppose you could get row R2.
R and R2.
Well, I'm not happy with it.
No, but it's tried very hard with it.
And finally, from Neil UK, he says, this is back to David James, Jesse James is a possibility, as it's a clever reference to an historical bandit, while describing how he often plays between the sticks, like a Jesse.
Ah.
And then his homophobia breaks down even further and says, and a bandit, for that matter.
He's followed that one all the way through, which is excellent.
So that's a good start, though, I think.
Yes, thank you very much. Keep them coming. Keep any nicknames coming for David James, or indeed anyone involved in the England team, or indeed anyone involved in the World Cup. And also keep your eyes on the website, because we will be posting different questions from time to time for you to send in your answers, and we'll feature them on this podcast or others. Well, I'm very pleased to say that now we have with us Morrissey, who's just popped in. Morrissey, I wonder if you can let me know how you felt about Jamie Carragher's performance yesterday.
Well, I don't think he's had a fair chance. He's a good passer of the ball.
And what did you think about Aaron Lennon? Did you feel that he didn't play as well in this friendly as he did in the previous one?
I thought it was interesting that Beckham stayed on with a slight injury. He was clearly afraid that Lennon would come on and do well.
Morrissey, thank you very much. In the next podcast, we'll be previewing the Paraguay game with Anthony from Anthony and the Johnsons.
So great news, Dave.
Yes.
We're sponsored by Dodge.
Yes.
These old podcasts are sponsored by Dodge. This is incredible. Dave said we can have one.
Well,
Not
me and
you. No,
Oh,
we can
that's
have
a bit
one as a
disappointing.
competition prize. So we're actually going to give away a Dodge Caliber.
Excellent.
So it's alcohol-free as well. And we're going to give it away. And there's going to be, each of the podcasts will have a mystery voice on it, is what we'll do. And they're all going to be Football World Cup related. And we're going to play the voice. And then at the end, just before the end of it, we'll announce this is the last one. And then if you send us the whole list, and then the people who get them right, or as many right as they can, we'll put them into a big tombola. And the winner gets a Dodge Caliber.
Okay, so if you got that, you basically have to compile our squad, our World Cup squad, based on a series of mystery voices.
This is mystery voice number 1.
We would away, arms up. Had he not been sure as a professional, he'd have put the ball away.
Started them off on, I would say, a fairly easy
Yeah,
one.
that one's pretty easy, but they're going to get a bit tougher. You're going to win a Dodge Caliber. You've got to earn it.
Yeah, so listen to every podcast and you might end up with a Dodge Caliber. Frank, did you read this thing a couple of days ago about how Rio Ferdinand played a practical joke on David Beckham?
I knew he'd something to do with the kidnap, but I don't actually know the detail.
Well, what happened was David Beckham was just going somewhere. I think he was going to some kind of signing or something. And he got in the car and it was a chauffeur, and just there was a chauffeur. And the chauffeur started taking him a really weird way through somewhere in Manchester to Moss Side, to like the hardest part of Manchester.
Right.
And after a while, David Beckham couldn't work out what was going on, and then he noticed a car behind him, which had some cameras in it. And he
Carbohydrate?
he didn't notice any carbohydrate.
Okay.
Yeah. He noticed a car behind him, and he got out the car and ran because he thought he was being kidnapped. Right. And then it was all stopped. It was all stopped, and it turned out that what this was is, and I didn't know about this program at all. Rio Ferdinand is doing a program for ITV called Rio's World Cup Wind-Ups.
Right.
And it was that the people in the car behind were his camera crew, and he had done a thing there where he was letting David Beckham think, "Oh, I've got some dodgy driver here. Where's he taking me?"
God.
But what worries me about that is that bloke was taking him through Moss Side, the most dangerous place in Manchester. So Rio's World Cup wind-ups might have ended up with some hoodies mugging David Beckham and making him, break his leg or whatever for the World Cup. I mean, what else is Rio's World Cup wind-ups going to involve? Accidentally dropping a funny brick onto Wayne Rooney's foot.
It's also a slight worry that it's that easy to kidnap David Beckham.
Yeah, but
I thought he'd have his people with him,
But also, apparently he was caught quite quickly, David Beckham, pace never having been his strong point. He
Yes.
was caught quite quickly when he ran out of the car and the camera crew stopped him and then he understood. And initially, apparently, he was really, really furious, but then, because it seems to be the case that footballers' humour is always about practical jokery. They don't seem to have any other sort of sense of humour. It's always...
Imagine how high Beck's voice went when he was really... Can you imagine it?
Yeah, and Rio, who's got an odd voice as well, trying to explain, it's all right, David, don't worry about it, it's fine, it's only a little joke, I'm just trying to slaughter you, David. No, leave it out, it's only fair. But I don't know, because actually, while we're talking about it, we could make this maybe the next thread, because I do think that footballers...
Thread?
The next thread on the website.
Right.
Because footballers are very keen on practical jokes. So if you know of any football practical jokes that you've either played on people or that you know that famous footballers have played on people, why don't you send them to us on our website?
Who, me?
No, not you. Our podcast listeners.
that's
You can send them in if you like, but you can tell me.
Dennis Irwin told me one, because Bob Taylor used to play for West Bromwich Albion.
Yes.
Super Bob. And they'd been at Leeds United together. And Dennis Irwin told me that they'd managed to convince Bob Taylor that he was playing an exhibition snooker match against Alex Hurricane Higgins.
Really?
To the point where Bob Taylor turned up at the pub in like a dicky bow and got his cue and he got the waistcoat on and everything. And he turned up, took his coat off, and they all just fell about laughing.
That is quite a funny one, though. Because the thing is that I don't generally like practical jokes that much. Well, partly because I heard that Hitler was a practical joker. Did you
Was
know
he
that?
really?
That was Hitler's big thing, apart from obviously genocide.
Is that what the Anschluss?
Yeah,
was
apart from the
actually,
Anschluss. He loved a good practical joke.
Actually, he's slightly gone up in my estimation there. But he was fairly low in my estimation. I hope you're not going to be going on about Hitler throughout.
No,
'cause when we're in Germany.
But I'm hoping there'll be an ITV show called Hitler's World Cup War Wind-Ups.
Stein.
Just keep that in.
Yeah,
That's our Jewish pronunciation section. Is it Stein or Stein?
we have with us Daniel Finkelstein.
I think it's Finkelstein.
You say Finkelstein, I say
No, it's
Finkelstein.
easy.
Let's call the whole thing.
Let's call the whole thing
Jew.
Dan, not Jew. I can't. So you can say that because you are Jewish. I
Okay.
can't. But anyway, Fink in the house is the point.
Yes, we're going to call you the Fink because you write the thing I think called the Fink Tank in the Times, which is a football statistics page, isn't it?
That's right, yes. Well, we've got a model of the Premiership, but also now of the World Cup, which consists of 4,500 matches imputed into a big computer, and we've simulated the whole of the World Cup to get the probabilities of all the different results and the probabilities of the different players playing well for England or for other countries.
You know,
Do you have little model soldiers like when they do Waterloo and stuff like that?
If Andy Gray can have tiddlywinks on Sky, don't you think I can have little models?
well, the thing
I
is,
think you
Fink,
can have little models, certainly.
the thing is, Fink, I think of you as quite a sort of intellectual Jewish. I should say for our listeners that the Fink is a balding glasses man who is exactly as you might expect. But when you said computed into a big computer, you rather let me down in terms of your scientific know-how.
Yes, well, it's been put into a computer then, David, is that all right?
That's all right. So what are our chances?
Well, hold on. What's been put into a computer? Can you just say a general kind of
Yes.
thing of the stuff you put into the computer?
Basically, it's goals and shots on goal. And those are the things that really influence a football result. And all the things that football fans think matters a lot, like injuries or which exact player is playing on which day, those things matter a lot less than just a record of what happened over the last 4 years in terms of goals and shots on goal. And you can make a pretty accurate prediction of the chance of winning a game just with that information.
You've tried this system before. I mean, what,
Absolutely.
for example, did you predict?
In the last World Cup, we started by saying that there was a 25% chance of Senegal beating France. The bookies thought it was actually a 1 in 8 chance, and of course Senegal won.
Did you ever bet on that?
Well, actually, we've been betting against the Premiership for the last 4 years. We made a profit every year. This year, for instance, we said Wigan would come in the middle of the table. We got it spot on with Wigan, and we made a profit on the Premiership in general.
When you say we made a profit, what you and these boffins, I could use the word boffins, are actually got some kind of float that you make money on.
Absolutely. Computed into the computer, as we technical people like to put it.
Fair play, though. I don't know many football fans who thought Wigan would finish halfway up the Premiership.
Absolutely.
So what is our chances of winning the World Cup in 2006?
Okay, well, you've got to take all the countries playing. There are 32 countries playing the tournament, and you've got to give each of them a chance of winning. And so England only end up with a 5% chance of winning the tournament, because you've also got to say Brazil have got a 13% chance, France have got an 11.1% chance, Germany have got a 10.9% chance, and when you've taken all the teams, it's a 95% chance we won't win the World Cup.
And that's based on games leading up to the World Cup? How far does it go back?
We've gone back to 1998,
right?
And we've also got all the goals scored, and we've divided them into games like major championships, minor championships, friendlies, qualifiers.
So does anyone know, perhaps Roche can tell us, what is the present odds for England winning the World Cup?
You can get kind of 7-1, and you can between 5-1 and 7-1.
So that's a much bigger percentage chance than you are saying scientifically.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a mugs game betting at those odds.
It's a mugs game, is it?
So
that's another technical term.
Okay, so who should we bet on then?
Well, it depends on the odds.
Okay.
I think the best thing to do is try betting against some of the countries. People have an overestimate of almost every country's chances of winning the tournament. So one of the things you can do is, with something like Betfair, is start betting against countries winning.
Okay.
I read the other day that the Italian, I can't remember his name, the Italian Serie A striker, who's got the most goals in Serie A, is 33-1 to win the Golden Boot, which seems an incredible bet, if that's true.
Well,
Lucia, I think his name is.
One of the things that I would never do is bet on scorers, because the chance of particular scores or particular scorers are very low. It's very difficult to estimate and extremely difficult to get an edge on it.
One thing that I know as well is that you completely discount the idea of match fitness. I think we hear a lot about at the moment, particularly about Rooney, the idea that he'll get fit, but then he needs to get match fit.
We did a study where we took every game where somebody had been off for a month and compared it with the game before they were off for a month to see whether there was a statistical difference between the contributions they made in those two games, and we found no statistically different contributions. So as far as we're concerned, there's no statistical evidence that there is match fitness.
I really like that, actually, I have to say, because it's one of those things that commentators talk about that we completely take for granted, that, he needs to get match fit. And when you actually stop to think about it, what on earth does it mean? Because surely a player playing at the top level, if he's physically fit and is playing in training games the whole time, why should he not just go out and play football?
Yeah, but the thing is that Rooney won't have been playing. He won't have been doing any football at all for about 2.5 months. So his reflexes will be slightly off.
Well, not according to the Fink.
Well, no, I'm not arguing with the Fink. God forbid.
Yeah.
They've booked Trafalgar Square on an open-top bus and all that for June the 11th to celebrate England's World Cup win.
Yes, they are. They're very hopeful about that, but presumably it's difficult to close off London at a moment's notice, so they have to do it, don't they? When I heard about it, I didn't know whether I thought it was a good thing or a bad thing in terms of omens. I mean, obviously, you're a Catholic, you don't believe luck exists, but if you do imagine that something could be an omen, whether or not them booking a victory parade.
Yeah, but you've got a bookie. And I say, if Brazil did say, look, we'll take the coach, we'll stop off on the way home and do a victory parade in London, because there's a lot of Brazilians live in London, probably. Certainly a lot of Brazilians in London.
Yeah, loads of them.
I think, especially that time of the year, I think when people just want to let the air get to everything.
Yeah.
If they went on an open top, I think they'd still get quite a good turnout, Brazil.
Yeah, I think so, but it might be a little bit difficult to take. The Scottish people, who apparently are supposed to be part of these victory celebrations, would perhaps be pleased.
Well, I think they'll get the day off. I think Britain gets the day off, including Scotland.
Do you think the Scottish people will go to work out of spite?
Well, why break the habit of a lifetime?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I think they'll probably come down and they probably will throw things at the coach.
It's an interesting point you raise about Brazilians, because I wonder if Brazil doing well, and say winning the World Cup as they do normally, adds to people getting Brazilians, whether more people at waxing salons ask for Brazilians because the brand has been improved by Brazil doing well in the World Cup.
Well, I'm having my pubic hair cut into a cross of St George.
Are you?
For the World Cup, yeah.
Well, that's bound to help.
Yeah.
I think that should be their pride of place in the victory parade.
I think so. It comes with its own flagpole on a good day.
Now, if anyone is wondering what we're using as our music on this podcast, it is in fact Frank Skinner playing the banjo. Surprising though that might seem. Perhaps you could tell us why because I've never known you to play any musical instrument really before.
No, I'm doing a documentary for BBC One in which a series of celebrities learn an instrument each.
And why did you choose the banjo?
Well, I think the banjo is essentially a comedy musical instrument. Even when I've said to people I'm learning the banjo, even you, when you said banjo, then a smile was playing on your lips.
Yeah, and also you suit the banjo, I think. I mean, because for many years you've done a George Formby impression. Now, I know he played the banjolele.
Yes.
But it's kind of the same thing, isn't it?
Yes. Claude Banjolele, he was known as, when he played for Chelsea.
Yeah.
But I'm taking
So you're
it to
taking it to Germany. It's quite a big instrument.
I am taking it to Germany, and my teacher said, look, I don't know if you'll be able to take it as hand luggage. He said, I went on a plane, and they wouldn't let me take it on as hand luggage until I took the strings off. He said,
that made all the difference.
In case I tried to strangle somebody with the banjo strings.
Right. Right. What about hitting someone with the banjo head?
That's another thing, yeah, of course. So that's a slight worry as well. Although at least I wouldn't be able to hit a cow's arse.
The great thing about strangling someone with banjo strings, though, on a plane is I imagine they'd start twanging and playing.
Yeah.
So you'd be killing someone and playing some kind of bluegrass thing at the same time.
Well, the idea that you could hijack a plane with a banjo, what a great headline that would be.
It'd be so awful as well if that was the last thing before you actually lost consciousness, if you could just hear your fingers playing some kind of hillbilly
But
thing.
I think the passengers, as well as terrified, would be slightly giggling at the banjo element.
They would think it was funny as well. I should say, if anyone's wondering, by the way, that obviously I do really like Frank's banjo play, but also any other music that we tried to get turned out to be too expensive.
Exactly.
That's the other reason
Whereas
we've got it.
Me playing a traditional tune on the banjo was free. Did you read about Roberto Hakuna?
No.
Now, so I was going to tell you about this earlier, and you changed the subject, and I thought, well, I'll tell you on air.
Yeah, I wasn't embarrassed about it.
No.
Didn't change it in that sense.
Well, Roberto Hakuna, you may know, he's a kind of veteran striker for Paraguay, and he's in trouble. He's facing a FIFA ban, and this might not be true, but it was in the paper, right? He was interviewed, and there was a female photographer called Emily Asplund, a Swedish...
Emily Asplund?
You know Emily Asplund?
Yeah.
And she's a Swedish newspaper photographer. And so she went back to her hotel, and about 3 o'clock in the morning, she gets a phone call from the Paraguayan interpreter saying, this is Roberto Hakuna. Well, it's not him, but I'm interpreting what he's saying in Spanish. And do you want to come round my hotel room?
Right.
And
what did Emily say?
She was very upset.
Was she?
I think she was affronted.
Oh, Emily was asplunted.
She was totally asplunted.
Oh, dear.
And
so what happened in the end? Was he?
So she, instead of like phoning her boyfriend or something like that, or the hotel manager, she phoned FIFA.
Did he get a ban?
Well, no, they are considering banning him because she said she was very upset that he would think that she would go to his hotel room in the early hours of the morning.
They are really considering banning him.
Apparently, a 5-man committee. I think they've already said to Hoffman, the interpreter, right?
Yeah.
They've said that he's allowed to.
Is it Dustin?
No, he's allowed to. Yeah, apparently he's an excellent driver. He's allowed to carry on as their interpreter, but he's on a yellow card. He wants to know more.
So they're blaming the interpreter as well.
No, but the interpreter, he shouldn't have done it either.
It's a fascinating quandary you've raised here, I think, because obviously I'm keen for a Paraguay player to be banned for the next few games. That'd be great. But the male in me really doesn't want there to be a situation where just phoning a woman up in the middle of the night and asking her to come to your room is in some sense an offence.
Well, I agree with that.
So I'm torn. I don't know which way to turn with the whole quandary.
But you've got to remember, we're beyond FIFA's jurisdiction. So I should... Yeah, but then now the Paraguayans are suggesting that because she's Swedish, it was in the same group as Paraguay, of course, because they're in England's group, that really she's just making a fuss out of it to try and spoil things for Paraguay.
Yes, but if that was the case, she should have brought it up in about a week's time after the England game. Not now. She's got her timing all wrong.
Well, you know what, Wim, they're very headstrong.
And also, if football player is going to get some kind of reprimand from FIFA for phoning a woman up and asking her to come to her room, then there's going to be loads of players who are surely going to get like life bans for things that they've done.
For roasting.
Yeah. What about Rooney? Doesn't Rooney get something for going to see a very old prostitute? I would have thought that would probably be some kind of banning.
I think that's all right because he didn't phone her in the early hours of the morning. No, she'd have probably been up making jam.
I imagine she would. They don't they go to bed very early, but they're normally up very early as well.
Yeah, well, they're up. Yeah,
it'd be no problem. So I'll tell you something else about Paraguay that you may or may not know, which is, did you know that duelling is legal in Paraguay? Did you know that?
No.
Duelling, the old, Renaissance art
I know
of
what duelling is.
Okay, sorry, I'm just explaining. Duelling is still legal.
The old Renaissance art?
Yes.
So you just shooting each other, basically?
Well, the whole thing, I presume, the 12 paces and the dawn and the pistols and the swords is still legal if, rather oddly, both the duellers are blood donors, which seems to me a bit odd because really, if them being blood donors is no good, you would have thought other people would have to give them blood.
No, well, I suppose if they die, you can just drain them off like black pudding.
But what struck me about that is what should happen, what would help England in that case, is if, say, Frank Lampard, for example, got into some kind of issue of honour with the Paraguayan goalkeeper, could go up to him, could even hit him with one of his own gloves, for example, and then could kill him at dawn, and then they wouldn't have a keeper, and it would be legal.
Well, I think if I was going to challenge one of them to a duel, I'd send Peter Crouch because he's one hell of a target in a duel.
Yeah, you'd never hit him, would you?
Man,
you'd only have to turn to the side and they'd never hit him.
That's like one of those when you have to shoot a string, to stop that. That would be. I think maybe Roberto Hakuna and Emily Aspelund should have a duel to decide this.
That would sort it out. With perhaps a FIFA representative dressed in a kind of uniform.
But the brilliant thing is, of course, presumably Hoffman, the interpreter, would have to hold the gun because he gets shot.
I think Hoffman's just well out of it.
I feel a bit sorry. I mean, I think maybe he was a bit presumptuous, but he asked her out and she said no. That should be an end to it.
No, I think it's fair enough. You're right. Poor old Roberto Hakuna. But I feel sorry for Hoffman at the end of the day. He was just a messenger.
You're quite
and he
right.
shouldn't be shot even by a bloke trying to hit Peter Crouch in a duel.
No, don't shoot the messenger. So we should say we're not actually in Germany yet. This is our last podcast before we set off to Deutschland.
Yes, we're going in a couple of days to Frankfurt, where we'll be in a hotel waiting expectantly and hopefully for the England-Paraguay game. And we'll be doing a second podcast, won't we, from Frankfurt just before that game.
Which is exciting. So you're looking forward to Germany?
Well, it's hard for me with my ethnicity really to look forward to going to Germany. There's always a part of me that thinks, well, I have to eat some potato peelings and live behind barbed wire.
But they don't do that anymore.
Are you sure?
You've got to forget about the Nazis. This is what I say to West Brom fans about Wolves. Don't keep on about the Wolves because you're giving them too much publicity.
Yeah, you really hate the Wolves, though. You haven't stopped hating the Wolves, have you?
Well, have you stopped hating the Nazis?
No, I really hate the Nazis.
Oh, okay.
I can tell you, if we meet any there, I'm going to be very cross.
Mind you, I was... Yes, I was on the south bank of the Thames in London the other day, and I saw, there's loads of tourists around the Millennium Wheel, and I saw these two blokes, one in a green and yellow check jacket, and the other one in a cap, and I thought, these are so the most German. Even from 100 yards, I thought, definitely German. And sure enough, I got close to them, and one of them said to me, "All right, Frank, how you going?" They were from Dudley.
Well, they Wolverhampton Wanderers supporters.
We didn't get that far.
Anyway, so we're going to be in Germany from the next podcast. Do download it again.
It's going to be the World Cup.
It's going to be the World Cup. It's going to be great.
We'll be watching England. It's going to be fantastic. And when we go to Germany, you know what route we're going to take?
What route are we going to take?
We're going to be coming round the mountain.
When she comes?
Yeah.
Listen to the unofficial voice of World Cup 2006, brought to you by Times Online, in association with the Dodge Calibre.